Good evening and welcome to the Select Board meeting for the Town of Rockland, Massachusetts. It's Tuesday, November 5th, 2024, and it's 7 p.m. Please be advised that this open meeting is being broadcast live and recorded for playback by WRPS at youtube.com/WRPS Rockland. Please go to WRPSRockland.com for further information. Please also be advised that the open meeting law gives the chair of a public body discretion to decide if public comment will be permitted, but the law does not require that a public body allow public comment or public participation during its meetings. Lieutenant McDonald, could you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we have community announcements. Doug?
Thanks, Tiffany. A couple announcements tonight. The first one's not on the agenda, but I'd like to read it. We've put this out on social media, town website, and probably everyone in the room received an automated phone message from the fire chief earlier. But just to hammer it home, I'd like to read the following. Order from the Fire Chief of Rockland: due to extreme drought conditions and elevated fire weather, I'm issuing a temporary ban on all outdoor fires within the town limits of Rockland, Mass. This order shall restrict all fires, including campfires, chimeneas, fire pits, or any other device that produce a flame, no matter the fuel being burned. The only exception to this order will be the use of grilling appliances specifically designed for the purposes of cooking and being used for the cooking of food. This order is effective immediately and will end at the discretion of the fire chief. And failure to obey the order of the fire chief may result in fines. Additionally, please use caution when disposing of fireplace or wood stove ashes. They shall be kept in a fire-resistant container and disposed in a manner that will not cause a spread of fire. If any questions, please contact Fire Chief Scott Duffy at 781-878-4094. And that's obviously due to the extreme drought that the whole state is under. Two other announcements. I plan on recommending to the chair that we include this on every select board agenda for the next several months. The first is a reminder to the public that the South Shore Regional Vocational Technical School Building Project is going to be on a special election ballot, and that election will be on January 25th. Again, it's a regional election, meaning all the towns will be voting, and in Rockland, it'll be overseen by our town clerk. And I just want to highlight, because I've had some conversations with the South Shore Tech Superintendent, Tom Hickey, about this. What I put on this agenda is the total project cost, which is $276 million. But Superintendent Hickey asked me to highlight to the public that there will be MSBA reimbursement, state reimbursement for this project if it does pass. And net of that state reimbursements, the net cost to the town will be approximately $165 million. And he also wanted me to highlight that based on his projections, for the first 2 years, if this project passes, our share of the debt service would be approximately $77,000 in FY26 and $156,000 in FY27. And I appreciate him with those clarifying comments. My major point that I want to keep hammering home, and we'll use other vehicles to do this as well, is that those first 2 years are interest-only payments, and that's why the cost is so low. And the superintendent's correct to highlight that if this passes, the huge cost won't hit us immediately in FY26. But still projecting further, just a couple of years after that, this equates to over a $30 million project for the town of Rockland. And that generally equates to roughly a $300 tax increase on the average valued home, which is a little over $488,000 in Rockland. And again, that's assuming that this passes, and that's assuming that there's a debt exclusion that Rockland voters pass to pay for it through that type of tax increase. So I know that's a lot of detail. We'll try to kind of can make that a little bit more concise on future agendas, but I wanted to give that clarification. But the main point, there'll be more info to come. January 25th is that special election. And then secondly, we have our fire station project that we've talked about previously. That'll be, as you have decided, that'll be voted by Rockland voters at our annual town election on April 12th and our annual town meeting on May 5th, and that will be a debt exclusion for that $26 million project. I also want to highlight regarding the fire station project, we're starting to put out more information about that. The fire chief and I did a very short, just a couple-minute video, which we've pushed out, letting people know this project is back. We listened to voters. We've scaled it back. It's smaller, less expensive. A lot more info to come. On the Town of Rockland website, the fire department page, on the left-hand side, we kept open the previous project that failed, that website page with all that prior information. If people are curious about looking at that older information, then we very clearly labeled new project for all the new information. We already have up a calculator where people can calculate what their property tax increase would be and some other written materials. There'll be a lot more to come, most likely after January 1st. And that's all I have for community announcements.
Thank you. Next, we have minutes from October 15th, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Next, we have new business. One-day liquor license request, Friends of the Rockland Memorial Library for December 12th, 2024, from 5 to 7. And I see from the library, we have both Karen Hefner and Janet Kahn. Please come on up. Hello, Karen.
Madam Chairperson, members of the board, town officials, and members of the public. My name is Karen Hafner. I am the president of the Rockland Memorial Library Foundation, also known as the Friends of the Library. Here are some examples of what we fund, host, and or organize. We are a major funder of the summer reading and adult summer reading programs. We're responsible for the museum passes at the library. We fund school vacation programs. We organize and fund the Art in the Rotunda Gallery. We organized and hosted a Rita Parisi theatrical program this year. Also, the Situate Band concert. And, of course, we'll be hosting the Victorian Carolers at the Holiday Stroll coming up, and much more. How do we do it? With fundraisers, Rockland Cultural Council grants, and one of our biggest sources of income, membership donations from our great members. We don't give our members perks like tote bags or mugs or t-shirts. Once a year, we organize an appreciation reception to gather together along with the library staff and the library trustees in a festive atmosphere to recall and celebrate the year's accomplishments, to think about the good that we have done this year and commit to doing it again next year. We ask the Select Board to grant our one-day license. And I'd like to announce that one of our biggest fundraisers of the year, our big fall book and bake sale, will take place at the library on Saturday, November 16th, from 10 to 2 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. I see that all of your paperwork is in order. Do I have a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. It's a great event. We approve the event every single year, so I see no reason not to approve it again. So I'll make a motion to approve.
Wonderful. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have the community electricity aggregation renewed for 3 years through December 2027.
Thanks, Tiffany. So as the board knows, voters in the town of Rockland voted to allow the town to have an energy aggregation program. And I start by saying that voters voted to allow this because we do occasionally get complaints at town hall from people that are just, for whatever reason, newly exposed to this program and want to understand, why we're placing them by default in this program, and they don't understand how this could have happened, it's taken their choice away, things like that. So I always start by explaining to those voters that this is something that's specifically allowed by state law. There's a whole program and regulations and guidance for how to implement it, and voters approved it. And so that usually kind of takes the edge off. So I just wanted to start with that piece. The way this works is we go through a third party. They essentially go out to bid to get fixed prices for the supply, not the delivery. So again, I'm clarifying between those two things, because if you look at your bill, there's two parts to your bill, the generation and then the distribution. This does not affect the distribution that goes through the national grid lines. It's just the actual supply. So when they go out to bid, those prices are good for the duration of the contract, which is 3 years. Our 3 years is coming up next month, at the end of December. So our vendor that we use for this process went out to bid and has successfully awarded the contracts. And what I have in your packet is a whole bunch of material. There's a memo that just generally explains the results and what the process was. There's a press release, and then there's a copy of the template of a letter that's going to be mailed to every single resident and participant in town. So the main thing that I really want to highlight is, again, this is something that voters authorized. You're placed into the town's default category in this program, but anyone at any time can opt out. And it's very easy, and there's no cost to opt out. So everybody has the option of not participating in this program if they so choose. The next point is there is a significant increase in the rate from what we're currently paying to what the new rates will be. Part of that is we're a little bit of a victim of our own success, and I say that because we've been in this program for several years now, and we were fortunate that what we're paying now, that 11.164 cents a kilowatt, we locked in at just the right time, so we had very low rates. So other towns that are just getting into the energy aggregation program, they're probably seeing a decrease, or they're not seeing much of an increase because they weren't in this to begin with. They've been rolling with those default national grid prices. But we've been in this program. We had a great deal this past 3 years. So now the market's kind of catching up a bit. So the rate is increasing, and you'll see in the materials our default plan. There's 3 options that the only difference essentially is what percentage of the electricity is from green renewable sources, where our default is that middle program called Local Green. You'll see the price is going up from 11.1 cents up to 14.28 cents. So it's a 28% increase, which is significant. But again, if you look at the documentation, you'll see even with this increase, it's still cheaper than the national grid rate, and that's the key point. And we're locked in with this cheaper rate for 3 years, whereas the national grid rate is only going up. But again, folks can always opt out if they choose. So residents will be getting mailings, and there's a ton of information on our website right from the homepage. There's a shortcut. We're always available to answer questions people have. So really just wanted to inform the community about that. I'm happy to try to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you.
Yeah, actually, I have just a question. So first of all, this has been a great program, and I remember when we first rolled it out, we got a lot of pushback from residents, but as we saw the increasing cost of energy in the state, residents started opting back in. With this change in the rate, anybody that has previously opted out, are they also going to be put back into it and then have to opt out again, or can they just
That's a great question, Mike.
go on as before?
I want to get back to you on that because I don't want to give you incorrect information. But that's
So I guess my
that's a good
assumption would be
question.
that if you were in it, then you roll over and you continue to go with whatever the Rockland Local Green or whatever plan you're in. But if you had previously opted out, I know a lot of residents have come up to me asking how to get back into it, and I direct them to your office, and
Yep.
they end up going back. And it's funny because a lot of people were really up in arms about it at first. But then, to your point, a lot of the neighboring communities, they paid a significantly higher rate over the last few years, and we were locked at a lower rate. And a lot of people have tried to get back in. So if that's something that we can really try to promote, to let people know and educate them that they are able to rejoin even if they don't get a letter.
Yep. And that part of that was the purpose of discussing it publicly tonight, but that's a great question. I'll get back to you with that answer.
Any other question? Yeah, no, it's been a very significant source of savings. Discussion of letter of support for Union Point's application for MWRA water connection.
Thanks, Tiffany. So I want to start by saying what's in your packet is not new information. I just pulled out a few slides from the presentation that the developers at Union Point presented to us. It was months ago, but I just pulled out the pages related to water because I thought it'd be relevant. To be honest, this really was initiated by Lori. She's been doing a bunch of work and has been speaking with the developers. And I've also, since Lori talked to the chair about putting this on the agenda, I also spoke with the master developer, and they would like some assistance in getting support from the board, from the town, in getting their application for MWRA approved. And I want to clarify, we're just talking about drinking water. We're not talking about wastewater. So it's pretty straightforward. I don't have a draft letter prepared tonight in front of you, but if you authorize that, I'm happy to draft something under the board's signature. And to me, frankly, I'm glad Lori brought this to our attention. It's a no-brainer. Getting MWRA approved at Union Point, will only help to make that project more viable, and it just brings MWRA water that much closer to Rockland and our neighboring towns. So I don't know if Lori has anything to add or any questions, but it's as broad and simple as that.
Yeah, I went to the open house for Union Point, and this is the point that is keeping the project from moving forward, because the Speaker of the House, Mariano, is in support of it, and the President of the House in the State House is kind of dragging her feet with it. So the point would be to write a letter to Karen Spilka to kind of impress upon her how important it is for our community, and our residents voted to move the project forward, and so this is the reason. So, and I support it. It would be a good thing.
Great, so with that, does anybody else have anything else to add?
I'll make a motion to endorse a letter of support for Union Point's application for the MWRA water connection.
All right, and do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? And that's unanimous.
Great. So we'll have a draft letter for your signature. I guess.
Okay.
Tiffany, we could either just draft it and have it ready for you guys to sign, or we could put it back on another agenda if you guys wanted to review it, the substance of it. But I think, whatever you want, but I think we'll be fine just preparing it. And if you have any concerns, we can put it on an agenda later.
I think that's great.
I should also add, maybe we can talk to our surrounding towns and get them to do the same thing.
Yep, that's a good
Or
idea.
just make them aware of it.
Yep. Good idea.
Other new business not reasonably anticipated.
I have none.
Okay, Section 5, old business. We have the sewer department update and proposed interim sewer superintendent compensation. Interim Superintendent Dave Taylor, if you could please come on up.
And while Dave's coming up, if I could just make a comment or two. I put in your packet some of my thoughts about the second part of what Dave's going to be talking about. So I know Dave's going to give us a general update, and he's also going to be, what we put on the agenda was for him to present his proposed compensation. But what I realized as I was preparing for tonight was that we did that really not knowing if we'd have enough applicants for commissioners for you to be able to appoint tonight. So my recommendation is that you do not vote on his recommended compensation, because if you choose to appoint at least two, at least a quorum of the sewer commissioners at your next agenda item tonight, it's really their decision on that. So I would really hold off on that. It's totally your call, but if you were to vote on that tonight, they're going to immediately review it and re-vote it, so I don't really see the point. And I would also defer to you tonight on whether you want Dave to present it so you can hear it and just talk about it or not. That's totally up to you, but again, my main point in kind of hijacking Dave's intro, is just that I would not vote on the actual decision of the compensation, and I would defer that to the sewer commissioners, which is the body that actually has the authorization over that. So, Dave, you want to come up?
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. It's like triple spaced.
I'm just going to go through everything, and if anybody has any questions towards the end, I'm more than willing to answer those.
Thank you.
So I'll start with the plant update. This is the September 2024 monthly operating report. It's submitted by Veolia to the town of Rockland. This is just a summary of this. Again, if you have any questions towards the end, happy to answer them. The facility will be reporting 0 exceedance for the month of September 2024. There was 0 lost time, first aid injuries throughout this month. The facility treated a total of 40.552 million gallons with an average daily flow rate of 1.352 MGDs. The reported rainfall for the reporting period was 3.01 inches. There's some notes there. I can explain that again towards the end. There's some ongoing projects at the plant as well. The digester boiler, presently the gas piping is being replaced right now. We've also upgraded the flow meters as of last week. The project contractor is Wilkinson Group. The project has been going on for about 2 years, and its present project scope will be completed by the year end. One of the other projects would be the generator upgrade. We have just finished the asbestos remediation as of last week. Presently, the contractor has started installing the new generator. The project contractor on that is Tilden Electrical. The asbestos, I don't have it in here, but the asbestos removal and remediation company was FLI. The project manager on this was Wright Pierce, and the project has been going on for about 2 years, and its present scope is to be completed within the next few months. There's a note there that the town is very fortunate to have the Veolia overseeing both of these projects. So one was the assistant plant manager, Jesse, has been micromanaging the generator project, and the new plant manager, Megan, has been micromanaging the digester boiler. All right. Ongoing engineer projects, which both of these companies I'm very familiar with because they were both in existence and we were both active when I was there the last time. Wright Pierce right now is handling the wastewater treatment plant generator replacement project. So they actually were hired to be the project manager to oversee that project. They are also the wastewater funding assistant. So they've been out there looking for different ways to fund both plant projects and out in the field I&I collections. Nothing has come of that as of yet that I've seen. So, wastewater treatment plant, secondary and electrical systems upgrade. So that is part of the overall CWMP project that people voted on a few years ago. This has been an ongoing project for 3 to 4 years. The wastewater system public outreach assistant project. I'm actually still looking into that right now, just to try to find out some more information on that. One of the other engineering companies is Weston and Sampson. They were hired a few years ago, it's actually 2 years ago, to do the I&I control plan. They're actually ahead of schedule. They're into year 3 of their I&I program, which includes the smoke testing. Smoke testing is what the town just went through with the inflow, with the sump pumps, roof drains, floor drains, etc. They are also in charge of the I&I and the O&M program, and that's with flow metering, where they did the 15 quadrants through town, and the groundwater gauging to see where most of the inflow is coming from. They've also come up with the NIPT's O&M plan, which is more detail in the collection system and its equipment. This coincides with the asset management program that we are just completing as well. The third is the asset management grant. This grant I started 2 years ago when I was at the sewer department the last time. I had to apply for 2 infrastructure components. At the time, I was at sewer, and at the same time, I was doing stormwater, so we chose those 2 components. Environmental Partners is the lead environmental engineering company on it. And what it requires us to inspect sewer manholes, drainage manholes, and catch basins. What it does is it does inspectional services, which gets us ahead in far as inspections. It also gives us the grades of the inverts, which is the pipe, gives us the pipe sizes, and also gives us the top height. So then that's added into our GIS layer for sewer and also for stormwater as well. Just going over some of the collection projects, that would be out in the field, not at the plant. So there is a MassDOT sewer manhole project. This has been an ongoing issue for an indentation around a manhole near 813 Market Street. We had a Hoadley camera the sewer line last week during the day. We'll be sending the footage over to MassDOT, and we'll pull a permit to excavate around the manhole in the forced main. I believe it is either there's an issue with the forced main, or what we refer to as there's upright wood shirring that they would have put in for that original sewer project. That goes back 50 to 60 years ago, which in my past lifetime in the private sector, I ran into when I used to do District 5 remediation for them down in Carver. So that's been a project, that's been an issue for ongoing. So how that came about is we had multiple calls from residents. We reached out to MassDOT. If anybody's been by there, it's a huge hump in the road. We reached out to them, MassDOT reached out to the sewer department, and then hence we started the manhole project. One of the bigger projects is the MassDOT sewer manhole project. This is on Center Ave. So this has been an ongoing issue with the sewer manholes collapsing, and some of them need rehab and replacing. We identified approximately 10 manholes. This was 2 years ago when I was active at the sewer back then. We've ordered the manholes, and we have pulled the permit through the state again. The project is most likely to be scheduled for the spring because they're coming up on the winter moratorium November 15th unless they grant us access before the winter. One of the other collection projects is the maintenance of the sewer lines, and these are in regards to the road projects. We do this both on stormwater, and when John Laughlin was here, he used to also do it for sewer projects after the road projects were done. So what it is we start to vacuum the sewer lines where there may be debris from the rebuilds of the sewer manholes or structures. We started the work last week. We did 2 nights. We did 7 p.m. to 11, so we really got 6:30 till probably 11:30. We did Weymouth Street. We did the intersection of Reservoir, and we also did North Ave, and then we started Reservoir as well. So we have to do those roads at night, obviously, because they're too busy. One of the other collection projects would be just overall maintenance of the sewer lines, identified just through the inspectional services relating to the AMP grant, and these are usually spots that they notice that might have heavy debris in them. There could be grease that overflowed from some internal grease traps or external grease traps. Again, these are ongoing. We actually have tomorrow night planned another 7 to 11 night, and then Thursday day, Violi will help assist on a Forest Street, which there was a lot of debris in Forest Street manholes. Just an overall sewer department update, plan update. The Rockland, this is just a summary, that the Rockland sewer system consists of 2 parts. This is everything at the plant. This is all contracted out to Veolia. They run all the plant operations. Everything outside of the plant is known as the collection systems, which I've referred to a couple times. It's covered by the town by way of the superintendent, who's assisted by Veolia, and other miscellaneous subcontractors. The oversight of the plant falls under the superintendent and outside contractors as well. You know, if there's any remediation or any rehab work out in the collection systems. The policy and the contract operations is overseen by the Board of Sewer Commissioners, with the sewer superintendent acting as a liaison between the subcontractors and the commissioners. The day-to-day, just to bring everybody back on the day-to-day operations, It's management of the budget, procurement, contracts, oversight, just daily resident calls if there's any issues out in the collection systems. The IPP program, this is currently not up to date. The last audit by the DEP, this was completed 2 years ago. The IPP program covers grease trap inspections on external grease traps outside of the restaurants. Commercial discharges, this would be like you would have at 3M, Serrano, those would be commercial discharges into the sewer system. The site visits for commercial users, this is where the superintendent would have to go out and actually do site visits to make sure there's no illegal connections or discharges into the sewer system. This is also, which falls under it, is also dental offices because of the use of mercury. There has to be mercury retention areas at dental offices so they don't overflow out into the sewer systems, as well as car washes, which fortunately enough, we only have one car wash. The inspections of these facilities will need to be conducted and brought up to date, and then once they are, we'll reach back out to Justin Pempera is our lead on that at the DEP and the EPA. One of the other issues would be blockages out in the fields. These are day-to-day calls from residents or restaurants. This would include sewer laterals coming from the sewer mains. This could be the stubs, and it can also be just as simple as a manhole cover off, that are either a resident or a commercial property is reported. One of the other aspects day-to-day would be including broken manhole structures, pipes, rehab work associated with road construction. For example, a month ago, North Ave West, Weymouth, and Hadley Road were rehabbed by the Highway Department. These roads will then need to be vacked and jetted by the Sewer Department to make sure there's no debris and we won't have any cause further down the lines. Also dealing with developers is a day-to-day operation. This is as easy as us, signing off on Form Ks, building permits. That would also include for drain layer licenses for outside contractors. Potential development to be reviewed. Fees need to be calculated for I&I remediation, development, and future permits. Touch base on permits, residential commercial sign-offs through building department, including all new connections, repair work. This can also be related to residential switchovers from septic systems over to town sewer. Then overall, town liaison at the plant for Veolia, not to micromanage, but just to essentially be the liaison for the plant operator and the town of Rockland. I was going to touch base on my experience as well over there. It'll be relatively quick. I've served as interim superintendent twice over the past several years, from 2020 to 2021 when John Laughlin retired, and again in 21 to 22 when Keith Anastasia resigned. The timeline of the sewer superintendents goes as follows. John Laughlin retired in June of 2020. I was appointed as interim superintendent by the sewer board in July of 2020. Keith Anastasia was hired by the sewer board in May of 2021. I stayed on for 2 months to help with the transition at that point. Keith resigned after 5 months. I was then reappointed by the sewer board at the end of 2021. I resigned in 2022. The sewer department was without a superintendent until the board eventually hired a Michael Buckley in 2024. Michael Buckley resigned after 5 months. I was then appointed interim superintendent for the third time by the select board in November of 2024 after the entire sewer board resigned. So within the last 4 years, I have been the longest tenured superintendent at the sewer department. This is my third year closing out the fiscal year end as sewer superintendent, which also includes future upcoming fiscal budgets and articles for the new year. There is no one else presently to perform these duties. My current hours at the highway department are 6:30 to 2:30 daily. My responsibilities include highway, trees, streetlights, stormwaters, and cemeteries. Currently, I do not receive any compensation or stipends for streetlights, stormwater, or cemeteries. I will need 2 hours during the day and maybe an hour or two in the evening to perform the responsibilities for the sewer superintendent. I will make up the highway hours on the back end of each day. This shouldn't be a problem where I've done this in the past as interim, and I'm usually at the office late during the busy season. I am estimating 15 to 20 hours during the week and more on Saturdays. The last time I served as interim, I ran typically over 20 hours each week. There is also night work that needs to be completed, and hours will be accumulated quicker. The last 2 times I served as interim sewer superintendent, I kept work journals, and I am presently doing so. The State Ethics Board has informed me to have separation of duties, and I've done that in the past and presently. That means separating all emails, via iPad for the sewer department, and also having a separate phone. There's a couple other issues I'd like to touch on as well. So there's been miscellaneous residential concerns. I just wanted to touch base and clear a couple matters up. One is related to sewer, and the other are shared by the sewer department. So there was one brought up that was an internal document, and I'm going to explain how this document actually came about. A Suez employee was doing work on his personal vehicle during normal work hours. I approached the plant manager and asked him if this is typically allowed. He said there wasn't much that he could do, as the said employee is friends with the current sewer chairman. I went over the plant manager's head and reached out to the regional manager and explained that we were not comfortable having a contractor working on his own vehicle in a town-owned building during normal working hours. He then came up with that posted document, which is the document that people have probably seen on site. The second residential issue that was brought up was the Spruce Street head wall collapse. And I'm going to just summarize this. We submitted a grant application in 2023. This was for both Spruce Street head walls. This was Spruce head wall east and also Spruce head wall west. We did a culvert assessment 2 years before that, which identified all the bad culverts in town. 2 of them on Spruce Street, 1 on Summer Street down by the Jehovah Witness Hall, and the other one was the East Water Crossing coming from Cushion Brook. We certainly would not jeopardize a grant unless we felt it was an emergency situation. We also are not driving around looking for additional work. I can attest that we have plenty of work. We repaired the collapsed head wall, ran into some issues with said head wall, with the backside of it being hollowed out completely and there was nothing holding the thing together. We repaired and fixed the road as well. There is a summary available, which was written in February right after the repair. I submitted it to Concom. Concom has asked us to submit an after-the-fact NOI, which we did so, and we are now attending that meeting in November. And I'll bring them up to date on that. There are also multiple open drainage projects through town, which are under the guidance and also under the sewer department. And these are listed in priority status, and these are all still open. The East Water Street head wall, and that's open piping, that's also coming from the Cushing Brook area there. So there is an area behind the person's yard there where it's completely collapsed out. So there has been no follow-up on that. There is also the French Road cleanup and rehab of open catchment area. We're going to be going back to that because we have to, we actually resubmit an NOI that was submitted 3 years ago. The project is just getting going on that. There is also an area brought up by residents at Rice Ave, and this is between number 95 and 105, where there is a consistent amount of blockage in the open drainage areas. There's also been issues up on Hingham Street in open drainage areas of blockages, and this area is from Lucas all the way down to the Glen condominium complex. The Sandpaper Factory Rail Trail, there's also an open catchment area that needs to get done there. And this is all the connectivity, if anybody's familiar with that area, that is all the drainage from Webster Street, East Water, and Howard Street runs to that area, down under the rail trail, ends up over at George Street, crosses Market Street, and eventually most all of our open drainage ends up down in West Hanover. One of the other open drainage projects would be fenced in at miscellaneous head walls throughout town that will need to be replaced. That's essentially a summary of everything, and again, I'm open to any questions you may have. We are still working on, this is, again, it's a summary. I've been there for 3 weeks, so we're still trying to get a grasp on everything out in the field and also everything at the plant. I've met with Wright Pierce, who obviously I have a rapport with from a couple of years ago, and also Weston and Sampson, who we actually hired 2 years ago to do our I&I control plan. And they have both given us those updates, and that's the summary of them. So, I don't know if...
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions from the board?
Yep.
Thank you for the update. It was pretty, seems pretty complete. Have there been any results from the smoke testing yet?
I was still waiting for, they just finished the smoke testing, so they're going to get all the data together. And then the next stage of that would be to come up with a rehabilitation and construction list. So we've still got to iron out that. Try to hit the heavy hitters first and
Right,
see how we can work that into the schedule.
okay. Well,
Yep.
I'm really curious to see those,
Yeah, I mean,
what comes of that.
to be honest with you, I remember John Laughlin did this maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And I think, Walter, you were there when he did some of the smoke testing. It's a small percentage that you'll get people to switch over sump pumps. So you have to be realistic on that. There's a very small percentage. I remember, I mean, don't quote me, but I think John identified, he did Vernon Street, Crescent Street, Howard Street, some of those areas there before we did road work. And it was maybe 20 to 25% of people agreed. And you find it. So it's a very little that you're going to get back from that. So,
Yep. Are there any commercial spaces that might,
again, I've just gone by what the areas that they did, and obviously there are more areas out there.
Okay.
And then, we could go with another phase. They did a large part of town. So, and it took,
Cool.
A lot. So it's progressive to say the least, which is, I was pleasantly surprised to see where we were with the I&I control plan,
Okay.
put it that way.
Yeah, and my second question is about the asbestos remediation
Mhm.
of the generator. I know that's like wicked expensive. Did that fall within the budget?
No, because it was not actually put in the original budget. So we hired a remediation company, the town did. And it was only a small percentage, so it wasn't part of the building. It was
Oh.
actually just part of the covering for the muffler system.
Yep.
So it was
Okay.
like very small. So, I mean, the cost of that was around $1,000.
Okay.
So it wasn't, on the whole
Yep.
scale of the generator project.
Right. So they remediated, when my house burned down in 2007.
Yeah,
They remediated asbestos. We got a bill for $78,000.
yeah, so it wasn't anything near that, so
Perfect.
it was
Okay,
a
good.
small percentage. It's done, they've started the generator project.
Yep.
We did pre-testing, we did testing before for air monitor
Yeah.
quality control, and we did a post-check as well
Okay.
to cover the town.
All right, cool.
Yep.
All right.
Great. Any other questions from the board?
No, just, not really a question, just a comment. Just, Dave, I appreciate, one, obviously, your willingness to always help us out, as evidenced by the amount of times you've been the sewer superintendent over the last few years. Also, I do appreciate you responding to some of the questions that have been posed on social media. It's oftentimes we see things posted without a lot of information about it, and this is a perfect forum for somebody to reply with actual facts and set the record straight so that we can just kind of end a little bit of that back and forth on social media and finger pointing that goes on. So I appreciate that, and I agree with Doug's assessment. I think we're probably close to appointing some commissioners tonight, and I think it'd be more appropriate for them to discuss any kind of compensation for you as opposed to members of this board.
I would agree.
Agree with that, and thank you very much for rising to the occasion and for your comprehensive update tonight.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you.
Next, we have the appointment of temporary sewer commissioners until April 12th, 2025, annual town election per MGL Chapter 41, Section 11. We have 3 individuals who are here tonight. What we'll do is I'll individually ask each to come up, and if we could please start with Michael Mullen Jr.
Good evening, members of the board.
Good evening.
Be back.
You're not back.
Well,
Yeah.
in front of you,
Perfect.
on the other side of the table.
Good spot.
For our purposes, if you could please introduce yourself, and then please share why you're interested in serving as an interim sewer commissioner, temporary.
Yes and no. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Mike Mullen. I live on 11 Road, 127 11 Road. I've lived there for the past 9 years. Prior to that, I grew up in Rockland. I grew up in Rockland on Turner Road. I'm almost a lifelong resident. I actually had mentioned that before, and I got a tiny bit of flack for that. There was a 6-month period where I moved out back in the day, but I moved back, and I've been here ever since. But yeah, back in the day, I've served. I served for 6 years on the school committee. I also served a total of 5 years on this board as well. And in terms of really the opportunity that exists now, it's an opportunity to serve the town that we love. And that's frankly why I'm here. A few years ago, when I was serving, as a member of your board, we went through a transition then. We handled it, extremely well. And also in my work life professionally, I work in municipal management, and I have been through, and I helped to lead, and I've helped to lead organizations and agencies through a host of other transitions. And, I think, to really help in the interim to bring back the type of collaboration, the type of professionalism, in the cohesion between Sue and the town, I think is very much needed. We need to. It's an imperative. We have, so much happening, so much on the line right now, that we have to have that type of synergy and cohesion. And so to come in, and to work with Dave, thank God we have Dave. I want to thank Dave. Everything he brings, especially to sewer again, has been incredible and is incredible. We also have to have a priority on hiring a new superintendent. Not to gush, but one of the proudest things I've ever been involved in is hiring Doug. And I think it was about 5 years ago when we hired Doug, the 3 members of the board, actually I apologize, we have 3 members, then we went back to 5. When we hired Doug at the time, the board, the board had committed to ourselves in the town that when we hired a professional, we would let the professional do the job. And I wholeheartedly believe that that's what we need to do with the next superintendent. And if we can get a jump on that, I can bring in a qualified professional superintendent who will be here permanently for more than 4 or 5 months. That'll be a really, really, really positive, element in my view. So,
Thank you. Any questions?
yeah, I went on a few minutes, but that explains its totality, I think.
So, so one of the things you just answered was one of the questions that I was going to ask, but my plan is to also ask the other gentlemen that are interviewing tonight. The previous commissioner struggled, as we just heard, with hiring and retaining a superintendent. In fact, there's been repeated turnover for the past 5 years, and the position has been vacant for the past 4 months.
Yep.
Do you have any thoughts on how this new board of sewer commissioners can successfully hire and retain a permanent superintendent?
A big thing, I think it's, really, we have to, I really think we have to recreate the culture of the agency, the department, as well as, as one that empowers employees, as one, that is is one that is really collaborative with other town departments as well. Is one that actually shows whoever we're trying to hire that we want to help them grow, and build them as well. And, again, and the fact that when we hire that person, when we hire that professional, that, yes, we're going to hold them accountable like we do our employees, but we're going to empower them. We're going to give them latitude. We're not going to micromanage. We're not, going to pretend we're, the board like our 3 superintendents, because we're not, and that is not the power of the board. That's not that's not why the board is there. I also really think that the sewer, that the sewer commissioners have to set the expectation that we expect a superintendent to collaborate with the other town departments. Even though we have an elected department, that we have to create the expectation that that we expect the superintendent to work with the town the same way the elected treasurer does, the same way that the elected members of the Board of Assessors do. That the same way the town clerk does. We have a cohesion, we have a synergy here in town that is really, in my opinion, the best it's ever been. And we have to really continue building, and enhancing that.
So that kind of follows up with that second, you've done this before, huh? That kind of follows up with the second question I was going to ask, and it seems as though.
Yeah, and to be clear, Mr. O'Laughlin, we didn't even share. I had no knowledge of the questions in advance. I just want to.
Given, and this is kind of what you just answered, but given that the town charter gives control to the sewer department, control of the sewer department to the sewer commissioners, how do you view the relationship between the sewer commissioners and the select board? If you're appointed, what type and how much communication would you want to have with the select board? And to my point, you answered that question. That you believe that it's something that
there's a synergy, there's a collaboration we need to have. We need to have. Our economy, our revenues all depend on it as well. We have to have that type of synergy. Even working and talking through planning and development. With water, utilities, infrastructure, because it's all relative. And if we're not having those, we're missing out. And I believe, there are some things in this, in our town where hindsight 2020, it would have, in my opinion, it would have been nice to have those, type of, to have that type of synergy before.
That's all I have.
Any other questions?
I guess I just have one question. I guess one of the decisions that you'll make as a commissioner is the moratorium. Do you have any thoughts on whether that should continue or not?
I do, but really, I don't. I have initial thoughts. What I really want to do is I really want to dive into the information from the EPA. I want to hear from our engineers who have been working with us, to address, and respond to the consent order, I believe. When we have any requirement or directive, from the EPA, the law is the law, the regulations are the regulations, but we have to, maybe we might have opportunities based on the work that we have ongoing. We might have opportunities in the future, but again, I don't want to, it would be way too premature for me to comment until, I have an ability to dive into all of that as well and hear from the professionals.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't want to overstep, but I think we're pretty much all in agreement that it's this board's expectation that anybody that's appointed as sewer commissioner tonight adhere to the administrative order and the 2.5 million gallons per day capacity.
Yeah, no,
permanent
that's a
capacity.
requirement. Yeah,
Of
like
course.
that's,
So that,
Yeah.
I think that, although I think it goes without saying, I think it's important to say and put that on the record that this board
Agreed.
is behind following the EPA order.
wholeheartedly agree.
With that, do I have a motion to?
So I'll say real quick, I will make a motion for Mike, as much as that it kills me to do so. But, the thing I do appreciate about Mike is, one, he always does the work. Two, he's got a tremendous background in municipal government. He understands municipal finance. He understands, that entire side of it. He's been a town administrator in Dayton, and he understands hiring. So I think the most important thing for these guys to do when they get in there is to sit back and identify somebody to be the permanent superintendent. And I think with Mike's experience, I think he'd do a good job at it. So, yeah, I'll make a motion to approve, to appoint.
And do I have a second? All those in favor?
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Carried away.
Next, we have Matthew Ryan, if you could please come on up. Thank you very much, Mike. Hi, Matthew. Thank you. For the purpose of our meeting, could you please introduce yourself? And once again, please share why you're interested in joining as a temporary sewer commissioner.
Sure, my name is Matthew Ryan. I was born and raised in Rockland. Moved back to Rockland about 7 years ago. Currently live at 936 Union Street. The reason why I'm applying for the commissioner is to reiterate what Mike has said, is to help the town of Rockland. I have 25 years of nurse management experience with the practice of hiring and putting together teams to run healthcare facilities, which deals a lot with regulations, with federal, state, JACO. So I'm familiar with the regulations, and I thought I could just help the town in any way I could.
Great.
So Matt, thank you again. To reiterate what Tiffany had said. So same questions I asked Mike. The previous commissioners struggled with hiring and retaining the superintendent. There's been repeated turnover for the past 5 years, and the position's been vacant for the past 4 months. Do you have any thoughts on how this new Board of Sewer Commissioners can successfully hire and retain a sewer superintendent?
I mean, it has to be a collaborative effort between all of us. At the end of the day, it's going to be, we need to set direct goals, what we need from the person, the superintendent. What we need from the superintendent needs to be clear cut so that we can receive back information that we need in order to make good decisions. So finding that right person takes sometimes a lot of time. Obviously, we'll be using Dave Taylor. Thank you, David, by the way. Does a great job, but using a lot of his insight along with the board. In trying to find that right person takes time, effort. Hopefully we can get it right the first time. But it's a difficult process at times. And to reiterate what Mike Mullen has said, we want to be able to get the person that we can turn the day-to-day operations over to, where the commissioners, the Board of Commissioners can then assist, supervise, add anything we can to them, but not interfere in day-to-day operations.
Thank you. And then, the other question I had asked was that given the town charter gives control of the sewer department to the sewer commissioners, how do you view the relationship of the sewer commissioners and the select board? And if appointed, what type and how much communication would you want to have with the select board?
Communication is key in any kind of collaboration, whether it be business, healthcare, street business, government. Communication is key between all boards. Information is only good as it's shared. So if the board needs information from me, as long as I'm willing to be, as long as I'm capable of giving it, I'll be more than happy to share any information.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, no, I just figured since I asked Dave, I'll ask you your thoughts on the moratorium.
Similar answer I would have to give as Mike Mullen. I would need to do more detailed analysis prior to be able to answer that correctly.
Okay, thank you.
Great. And Lori, your question?
Yeah, you guys answered, my question was how do you see the relationship between the commission and the superintendent and both of you guys? What I'm hearing is a hands-off approach and let them, a collaborative approach, but giving them the reins. And, a corporate culture in the sewer department of professionalism and lifting people up and giving them support and letting professionals do what they do is, I think, what we need.
Agreed.
So that's my only commentary.
Thank you. And with that, so far, we're finding management and synergistic skill set to that of Mike's and a overall focus on communication of all parties. And with that said, do I have a motion to approve the appointment of Matthew Ryan as temporary sewer commissioner?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. The thing I think that I like about Matt that kind of contrasts with Mike Mullen is Mike does a lot of his work in the public sector, Matt does a lot of his work in the private sector, but also deals with government regulations on a daily basis, and I think that that's important. I think somebody that has hiring background, as Matt said that he does, is something that we're looking for at this time, particularly in the interim. So yeah, I'll make a motion to appoint.
And do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. Welcome.
Welcome aboard.
Thanks, bud.
Thank you. Next, if we could please have Walter Simmons come on up.
Good evening, board.
Good evening, and thank you. Walter, if, for the purpose of our meeting, if you could please introduce yourself and share why you were interested in serving as a temporary as a temporary sewer commissioner. Thank you.
Well, my name is Walter Simmons. I've lived in Rockland for 55 years. I was on the Board of Commissioners for a few years, and what I'd like to do, what I wanted to do primarily was be on the board till we got a new superintendent. That never came about. And I think as far as a new superintendent, it'd be great to have someone with an engineering degree, and he could save the town a lot of money also. And working with Dave was a great experience, and I worked with John Rockland also. They're both great, and I just wanted to come back to see if I could be on the board to hire a new superintendent. That's my main purpose, actually.
Thank you. Thank you. Question?
So, Walter, the same questions that I asked the other two applicants. The previous commissioners had difficulty with hiring and retaining a superintendent. Obviously, there's been turnover for the past few years. You have any thoughts on how this new Board of Sewer Commissioners can successfully hire and retain a permanent superintendent? Now, I will say, I know you have been in the past part of the hiring process at the sewer plant.
Yes.
With one of our past superintendents, and I think, I went back and I watched the video, so I know you're definitely familiar with.
I think I could give back on that as far as talking with Mike and Matt, the process we went through, and it was a long process.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, too long, I think.
Yeah, you may not be able to take too long this time, seeing as this is an interim anyway,
Right.
unless, of course, you have plans to run for the position in April. Okay, so, basically, you're looking to work with Mike and Matt and figure out
Yes.
the best candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then, given that the town charter gives control of the sewer department to the sewer commissioners, How do you view the relationship between the sewer commissioners and the select board? If you're appointed, what type and how much communication would you want to have with the select board?
How much what?
How much communication would you want to have with the select board?
As far as meeting with
Not necessarily meeting, but just
the other commissioners?
as far as, I think there's been a perception that in the past there's been somewhat of an adversarial relationship. I'm not entirely sure that that's the case. I know Doug, Courtney, Allison, and Scott Curtis have worked extremely closely with the past Board of Sewer Commissioners. How do you view that as far as if you were appointed as a sewer commissioner, what your communication would be with the town administrator or the Board of Selectmen?
Oh, I definitely work with the town administrators and different people on the boards, different boards. Dave, I learned a lot working with Dave and John. But no, I'd be open for anything as far as, whatever they ask me for.
Yep.
And let the public know also what's going on. That's
Okay.
about it.
Thank you, Walter.
Thank you. John?
I guess just to, again, to be fair, your thoughts on whether or not the moratorium should stay or not.
That, I think, would be straightened out probably within the next month or so, once Dave gets back in the position, and we could talk about it more.
Okay.
And he's great at getting things rolling, which that's what I like about him. And he's dedicated, and it's been going on for quite a while, the moratorium,
Right.
obviously. But it'd be great if we could settle something in the near future on
I
that.
agree. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. With that said, and thank you very much for coming back after having served with your experience. And once again, we have new skills and new experience to share with the other two, and I think that this is going to be very positive for the town. And with that said, may I have a motion to approve Walter Simmons as a temporary sewer commissioner?
Yeah, I'll make that motion. I think if you go back and you really watch the round of interviews from 4 years ago, when they had hired Keith Nastasia, I thought Walter did a phenomenal job in his questioning, and you could see that he has a real technical knowledge of the sewer system, the sewer plant, and how it's supposed to run, and what the role of a commissioner is. So with that, I'll make a motion to appoint.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you, Walter.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for stepping up, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, Walter.
Welcome back.
Next, we have discussion of placing debt exclusion question on the January 25th, 2025 special election ballot for the South Shore Regional Vocational Technical School proposed building project.
Thanks, Tiffany. So all I have in your packet, this is a continuation of our prior discussions, the most current handout from South Shore Tech on their building project, and then a very simple spreadsheet that our town accountant put together that shows, based on our current percentages, Rockland is about 21% total enrollment. So again, that will change in the future as Marshfield and potentially other towns come in. But looking at a snapshot today, and again, with the understanding of what Superintendent Hickey talked about, that the first year or two would be interest only, with only nominal cost to the town. This project, as it stands now, based on our current enrollment, would be over $35 million cost to Rockland taxpayers. So as we talked about in prior meetings, I have my recommendation, which I'll just state one last time, and then I promise I'll stop. And then it's for you to deliberate and you to decide as it relates to a debt exclusion question. So again, just to be clear, this is a regional ballot question that will be done by each individual town clerk. Each election will be done by each town clerk. All the votes get tallied in total. There's no weighted votes. It doesn't matter that Rockland has, 21% of the share of students, whereas, Situate only has 8% and Cohasset has 1%. Every vote counts the same. If this ballot question that's on the South Shore Tech election is just a simple yes or no, do you want a new school? There is no funding associated with a ballot question. It's up to each town, if it passes, to figure out how they'll pay for it. So if it were to pass, if you take a town like Cohasset, they have very few students, only 1.36% of enrollment. I've spoken to their town manager. If this project were to pass, they have no plans to ask for a debt exclusion because they won't need one. They'll be able to fund that within their levy. A community like Rockland, we have no capacity to fund a $35 million project anyway other than a debt exclusion. So my recommendation is, once again, at the special election, that you would call your own special election that would be held same place, date, and time, but it would have to be a separate ballot because they're technically two different elections, but we'd have it same place and time. And our question would be to have a debt exclusion to pay for this project. And my rationale for that recommendation is when voters are going in to vote on the project, they understand that a yes vote for this project means you have to pay for it by raising taxes with a debt exclusion. And my fear is if we don't ask at the same time, excuse me, my fear is if you don't ask at the same time, if this project were to pass in January, then we get to our annual town election, and then we present the debt exclusion to voters then. I have two concerns. One is voters might be frustrated and feel like, why, if you knew this was going to need a tax increase, why didn't you ask me at the time you voted, this project was presented to us? I might have voted differently, or it would have been good to know all of that information when we were presented back in January. So that's one major concern I have. And the second concern I have is we have a fire station debt exclusion project that's going to be on the April annual election and annual town meeting, and I worry that's going to negatively compete with that. But those are my thoughts. So my recommendation is to put a debt exclusion question on the January 25th special election. There's no right or wrong answer here. It's a purely policy decision, whatever way you guys vote tonight or at a future meeting over the next, actually, hopefully you'd vote tonight because we really do need to make a decision. So I'll stop there and turn it over to you. I'm happy to try to answer any questions if you have any.
Feedback from the board?
Yeah, so I mean, the last time we talked about this, I think I was the one that suggested that we table it so that we can do a little bit more research into it. I called several town managers in several communities up in the North Shore area where they recently had a similar vote for Whittier Tech. I heard back from really only one of them, the town manager in the town of Rowley, and she said that as we know, Whittier Tech was not approved. It was a project that did not pass through all the towns, so they didn't really have to do anything with regards to looking into a funding source. But the way that they had planned to do it was to go to the polls in January, which is when they had their election as well, and then go forward. If it passed, then they would put a debt exclusion question on the April ballot. I completely understand Doug's point with potentially having a fire station on the ballot as well in April. So, it could be something that throws that project off as well. Obviously, we know that if the VOTEC is approved at the ballot between all the regional ballot, then we have to have a funding source, and it would have to be a debt exclusion. I guess the real question that we have is, one, how we're going to do it, but two, how do we go about educating the public what a vote for the school and for the debt exclusion means. Now, it's not necessarily the people that say yes for the VOTEC. The people that say yes, they'll see that they're voting for the VOTEC, and then they'll say, yes, it's through a debt exclusion. But if there's people that are coming in that say no for the VOTEC project, and then they say no for the debt exclusion, but that VOTEC project passes in other communities, then we're going to find ourselves in a situation where we have to come back in April, I think, again, anyway, with a separate ballot for the residents to answer the question that we just asked them in January. So I think Doug's right. There's no right or wrong way to do this. You know, asking around, it seems like there wasn't a consensus up on the North Shore either when they talked with Whittier Tech. Some towns did it, you know, the way Doug's suggesting, by having, you know, multiple ballots at the regional election. Other towns, you know, did it where they kind of did a wait and see, and if it passed, then they would take that next step in April. So I don't know that there's a right or wrong way for us to go with this, but whatever we do, the most important thing we can do is really start the education process for the public, because we cannot find ourselves in a position where a school is approved from a regional standpoint, but we have no funding source for it.
Yeah, agreed. I spoke with one of the select board members in Whitman, and they're going to wait and see. And I was telling her that, if you don't let people know ahead of time, they might feel like they've been flim-flammed in some way. And she's like, oh yeah, we probably will talk about that again at one of our other meetings. So, but I do agree that we ought to have a hard and heavy educational piece to this issue.
John?
So.
Yeah, so I understand, there's definitely two, good ways of looking at this. One is we don't want the public to go in voting for this thinking it's, without having any kind of an idea of what the cost is. But on the flip side of that, I'm concerned that because of I think the turnout's going to be atrocious. And you add that, you put a debt exclusion on there, you're going to get the naysayers more than, the average Joes to come out on this. And I think it's probably going to fail. And then we're in the horrible position of having to ask again after already being told no once, and having that then compete with the fire station. And you'll have people in a foul mood coming into April. I think it's better to wait, let the election play out. Obviously, we will need to educate people that, I hope that, people aren't so naive that they think that this is at no cost, but sometimes I'm surprised at how naive people do turn out to be. But anyways, my recommendation would be to just let the regional election play out on its own, and then we can decide if it passes, how we're going to approach a debt exclusion at a future point.
Donna?
I have said before, I think you have to be upfront and you have to give all the information at the point, because I can go in and say, oh yeah, I'd like to have a new school, and not pay attention to the fact that it's a substantial amount of money. So to say, oh yeah, well, maybe I won't vote because I really don't care. If I know that that substantial amount of money is attached to this question, I'm going to be more apt to go and vote. So I'm sorry, I think you have to give everybody all the information at the time so that they can make an informed decision, because debt exclusion, oh, in 30 years it'll be paid off. Great, in 30 years I'm going to be dead. So thinking about the fact that I have to vote for something that's going to affect my way of living for the next 30 years, I need all the information, and I need it at the point of voting. Not, oh, well, piecemeal here, oh, well, I voted for the school because, yeah, it's pretty. Now I have to face this huge amount of money that's going to be attached to my taxes every year. I'm sorry, I think in fairness to everyone, you have to give them all the puzzle pieces at the time.
And I also basically, in support of that, Donna, any way you look at it, we need a comprehensive education plan. We just do. And if it's segmented, so that we have a vote at one point, and then, you know, how do we fund it down the road, it basically weakens that educational moment. And so I am in support of the proposed initiative that Doug recommended, where if we're going to have the special election on January 25th, to also include that, just so it is, we have to educate our community anyways, but let's do it in a comprehensive manner so they know this is the vote, this is what's represented in our new school, and this is how we would have to pay for it. And also so that the community knows Rockland can vote, choose to vote against it, but if the other towns vote in support of the school, we are still on the hook for that bill. So that's very important to communicate, because either way, we're responsible for something that's very significant. And we do have a number of very significant initiatives that are coming into, that we'll be facing. So I do think that if they're together, we're able to look at that and to basically approach it with a very comprehensive campaign, which we're going to have to do. So.
I do have one other question. When we do a debt exclusion, is the amount of the exclusion on the question, or is it just that, will you vote to approve a debt exclusion to pay for this project?
Yeah, it's the latter, because you never know exactly what all the financing, interest, et cetera, will be.
Could you give a range?
Not on the question,
Not
so,
about.
so
Okay.
Prop 2.5 debt exclusion ballot questions are strictly, the language is strictly controlled by the state. So it's, we can't like tinker with it and give a range, like, it's very strict. So all we can do is in our educational communications up until then, explain what our information is. But the ballot question will probably be very similar to what the Phelps debt exclusion was. And so, no, you're right on, John.
Right, so I guess my point by asking that is, so when you go into the ballot, you will have no idea how much it's going to cost unless you've been told how much it's going to cost going in. So we can do that education without having the vote on the exclusion, is my point. And people then can go in there, when they go in to vote on the school, they know that eventually we're going to have to ask for a debt exclusion. My big fear is that somebody who doesn't want the school will vote no on both. But if the first time they're voting on the debt exclusion, they go, well, you know, it passed region-wide, well, I guess now I have to vote yes. So I'm just really afraid, and Mike pointed out, is the people who vote no on the school are going to think that, you know, like I said before at the other meeting, drive a stake, you know, a second stake through this thing's heart and make sure it's really dead. That is not at all the case. So I think having the debt exclusion at the same time without any kind of a number on it, it doesn't make sense, because you're going to need to educate people going, and you can have that same education process without the actual vote on the exclusion. And I don't want to have to ask a second time if it fails.
So-
People will really be in a sour mood after that if we
Yeah.
ask
So
3 months later.
To your point, I mean, I've been to many town meetings where people hand out a bullet list of agenda items or their spin on agenda items and warrant items right before town meeting. So it can say it there that we'll be on the hook for $35,221,719.46, right? Which would translate to $300 to $400 increase in their taxes for 30 years, right? I mean, is that doable?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously, you know, wouldn't, well, I'll take that back. The town can't encourage people to vote yes or no on anything, but
Right.
we can put out factual information. So yes, we could put out factual information.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to an educational program from now until January,
Right.
right?
And can I say one other thing, and because I don't want to insert myself into your deliberations, but John raised a good point, and I guess I just wanted to make clear, my thought process was, even though a dollar amount would not be listed in the ballot question, at least there would be a question that says, oh, I have to raise my taxes.
Yes.
Whereas without that question, it's like, sure, do I want a new school? And then later we ask, and it's like, well, why didn't you, whatever. So even without a dollar amount, I thought there was still value to it, but I'll step back.
So with that said, there's certainly no easy way around this, and there's two ways to go about it. Now, does someone want to entertain a motion to have the debt exclusion question on the January 25th, 2025 special election ballot?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Tiffany, can I make one
Yes.
clarifying point? I would recommend that first if you want to do that,
Yep.
have that motion. I think the first motion would be, you need to call your own special election. And then the second part of it would be, the one ballot question would be a debt exclusion for the school.
So that's
because
two different motions?
I think it'd be two different motions,
All
because
right.
I'll just say this for the public's benefit, because initially I thought, why don't we just add another question to the election? So it'd be one paper ballot with two questions. Legally, we can't do that, because the first election is the regional school, that's their election. We can't add questions to their election. We have to call our own election, so it'd be a separate piece of paper. It's going to seem like government inefficiency to people when they arrive at the polls if you vote this way, but that's just the way the law is. So I would first start with, do you want to call a special election? Then if you do you want to put that on?
All right, so may I have a motion to call a special election on January 25th?
I'll make the motion.
And do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
And Tiffany, just so you were, our school committee rep, Bob Mahoney, had his hand up. I didn't know if he had something he wanted to say.
The only thing I just want to recommend is that there's a change in the regional agreement, that it gets looked back every 4 years.
No,
So
we-
you are not locked into.
We understand that, yeah, we've been talking about that at
Okay,
our
well, I just
meetings.
haven't heard it mentioned tonight, that's all.
Yep.
And we are adding 2 new programs onto the school as well. So it's not like we're just replacing the building, we're improving and adding 2 more classrooms on there, which is veterinary technicians and plumbing as a full course.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now do I have, now that we've established that we have a motion approved,
Do we vote, just for the record, shouldn't we have the 2 posts, ask for a post? I know we saw 3 hands go up, but.
okay, should we have a roll call vote?
Sure.
Well, no, you just said 3, so you say all those in favor, and then you say all those opposed. That's,
I'm sorry.
no
I know
worries.
you're used to a unanimous.
All right.
so.
So all those in favor, all those opposed?
Well, hold on, okay, all those opposed, okay.
Okay, so noted. Do we have a motion to place a debt exclusion question on the January 25th special election?
I will make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. I know that's a difficult decision. I will let the town clerk know tomorrow, and we'll have the language worded in accordance with state law with town council's assistance.
Other old business not reasonably anticipated.
I have none.
Next, select board liaison updates. Do we have any liaison updates this time? Okay. Next, town administrators report and correspondence.
Thank you. I'll keep it quick. I know everyone wants to get home and look at the election results. I know that's important to everyone. So on the note of elections, I just want to start by sincerely thanking the 3 people in our town clerk's office, Liza, Christine, and Helen. And as Donna knows better than anybody in this room, running an election is incredibly important, and it's never been more difficult ever in our lifetime as it is right now, and what they've been dealing with. And they've done a fantastic job. Not just those 3 people, there's obviously a lot of election workers that are out there as well, but I just want to thank them for their professionalism. And the public should rest assured that our elections are run fairly and accurately. So that's number 1 on my list tonight. Second, I've talked repeatedly about the last ARPA application we put into Plymouth County. That last one was for the sewer generator replacement installation, and that has, since our last meeting, been approved by Plymouth County. So all of our applications are in. They have all been approved. And very quick side note, just on a sewer note, because, you know, there's been a lot of discussion, especially at your prior meetings, about this board's lack of support for the prior commissioners and what led to them resigning. But I should just highlight again that it's this board that dedicated over 75% of all of our Plymouth County federal ARPA funding for sewer, and that's significant. So,
What's the dollar amount on that, Doug?
well, our total allocation was our total allocation was 3.2 million, and 2.2% of it or so, I can add it up quickly, was dedicated for sewer, and that was for I&I work, digester boiler replacement, generator replacement, and then plant upgrades and design. So over 2 million. So you should be proud of that, and I just want the public to know that we have supported the sewer department. I want to thank the county for their implementation of that. I don't think it's been mentioned tonight, but Dave Taylor did successfully receive a $500,000 grant from Mass Department of Transportation. That's for our Complete Streets program. I think it's curbing and sidewalks. Is that what you're doing? Curbing and sidewalks on North Ave. So that's a very competitive program. So that's $500,000 he got. I want to thank him for that. Two quick ones, two last things. Number one, just sort of a heads up for everyone that the town accountant and I are worried about next year's budget. In particular, we have two cost centers that we're concerned about. One is health insurance. In my time here, and I'm not taking any credit for this, but over the past 5.5 years, we've had really good luck with our health insurance increases. They've been single digits. We even had a 0 in there one year. We've done really well lately. Not just Rockland. Everyone else is going to face a much more significant increase. I know John is shaking his head because he's probably understanding a similar dynamic in his community too, but we're looking at potentially could be up to a 10% increase. So that's going to hurt. And then similarly, Plymouth County is really accelerating their funding of Plymouth County retirement, and it's been accelerated a lot so that it can be fully funded, you know, within a short period of time, which is good, except it's just a difficult thing to fund, and it's going to be even greater this year. We're looking at up to a 9% increase in our retirement this year. So it's just a heads up. This could be a difficult budget year with those two cost centers that we have very little control over going up so much. And then lastly, as the board knows, but just for the public so they know why I'm standing here and what they will or won't see, unfortunately, I've had another back injury. I'm going to be having back surgery next week. So I'll be out of commission for about a week or two. Then after that, I'll be working from home until I get cleared to be able to drive back up to Rockland. So that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Select Board comments. Comments and opinions expressed by individual members do not necessarily reflect the views of the Select Board and are the opinions and comments of only the individual member. Select Board Member O'Loughlin.
I have no comments tonight.
Select Board Member Ellard.
Just to piggyback off, Mansfield's probably looking at a 10 to 12% health insurance cost increase this upcoming year. So that's certainly something that isn't going to just be unique here to Rockland. Secondly, I just want to thank, Doug mentioned that what a great job Liza and crew do with the elections. And then, Doug, best of luck with your surgery.
Select Board Member Shortle.
I want to thank the three candidates who stepped forward in our time of need. Thank you very much. You bring a lot of qualifications to the position. And it's not easy to step in to a mess. I want to thank the town clerk's office. I do know how tough an election is. And they've done an excellent job. And I'm glad I'm not there. And Doug, I wish you the best.
Vice Chair Childs.
Yeah, Doug, good luck with the back surgery. You know, if you need anything, we're always available.
Thank
you. Need anything from us. And I'd like to congratulate South Shore Taekwondo and Mr. Whitman for raising a little over $5,500 in October for cancer research organizations. So that's all I got.
All right, I want to thank Dave Taylor tonight for your update and for stepping up as the interim superintendent. Once again, I'd like to welcome our new sewer commissioners. Thank you very much for volunteering your time and your talent for greatly needed positions. And once again, thank Liza and her crew for running our election today. And Doug, we're wishing you the best. So thank you. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn? Do
Motion to adjourn?
I have a second? Second. All those in favor? Good night, everyone.